You are eating eggs wrong, not because you eat too many, but because you are combining them with something that turns one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet into a genuine threat to your heart. And most people do exactly that every single morning without knowing it. At the same time, a study with almost 9,000 older adults shows that the right way to eat eggs reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease by 29%. Same eggs, different approach. Today, I am going to explain what actually makes eggs dangerous and what makes them one of the most powerful protective foods available to people over 60. There is one nutrient in eggs that doctors almost never mention, and it is more important than cholesterol, more important than protein, more important than anything else in that egg. We will get to that. My name is Dr. James Carter. I have been practicing medicine for over 30 years, and on this channel I talk about everything that affects health after 60. Let us start with the myth that has been feeding people incorrectly for 3 decades. For decades, the message was clear. Eggs raise your cholesterol. If you have heart problems or want to be careful, avoid eggs. This belief was deeply embedded in American doctors' offices, in nutrition guidelines, in health magazines, and it was wrong. Here is the physiology. Blood cholesterol levels are 2/3 regulated by the liver, not by diet. Only 1/3 of blood cholesterol comes from food. When you eat more cholesterol, your liver produces less. When you eat less, your liver produces more. The liver actively regulates. It is not a passive receiving station. The American Heart Association has updated its position on dietary cholesterol significantly. The current evidence does not support a strict limit on eggs for most healthy adults. That is an important shift that almost never gets mentioned in public conversation. There are people where egg consumption slightly raises cholesterol. They are called hyperresponders. These are people whose livers react more sensitively to dietary cholesterol than others. In most people, levels remain stable. In some, they actually drop. If you want to know which group you belong to, have your LDL tested once before and after 6 weeks of regular egg consumption? That is the only individual answer. Second myth. Eggs are especially dangerous for older people. The opposite is true. An Australian study with almost 800 seniors over 70 found this. Those who regularly ate up to 6 eggs per week had a 17% lower overall mortality than people who rarely or never ate eggs. The risk of cardiovascular disease was 29% lower, and in older adults with an overall healthy diet, the heart risk dropped by 44%. 44%. That is not a small number. That is a medically significant effect. Third myth. The egg yolk is the dangerous part. You should leave it out. This is one of the most expensive nutritional mistakes you can make. The egg yolk is exactly the opposite. It is the most valuable part of the egg. Throwing away the yolk means throwing away the best part. Here is why, and we are about to get to that. Now let us look at what is actually in an egg, because most people only know a fraction of it. An egg contains all 8 essential amino acids in optimal composition. This means the protein in an egg can be fully utilized by the body. No single plant food achieves this completeness alone. This is why biologists historically use the egg as the reference standard for protein quality. Vitamin D. The egg is one of the few natural foods that contains meaningful amounts of vitamin D. In the United States, vitamin D deficiency in adults over 60 is remarkably common, especially in northern states with limited sun exposure. This matters. Vitamin B12, essential for nerve function and blood cell formation. After 60, the body's ability to absorb B12 from food declines because the stomach lining produces less intrinsic factor, a transport protein that carries B12 through the intestinal wall into the blood. Regular B12 sources like eggs are therefore particularly important for our age group. Selenium, a trace element essential for thyroid function and the immune system. Many Americans do not get enough selenium. Eggs are one of the most reliable selenium sources available. Zinc supports immune defense, wound healing, and protein metabolism. Particularly important after surgery, during chronic inflammation, and for supporting the immune system as we age. And now, the nutrient that doctors almost never mention, choline. Have you heard that name before? Probably not. Even though for people over 60 it is one of the most important nutrients there is. Choline is an essential nutrient that the body can produce in limited amounts but nowhere near enough for its needs. It must come from food. And most Americans take in significantly too little of it. What does choline do? First, it is the precursor for acetylcholine, the most important neurotransmitter for memory, learning, and concentration. Without enough choline, the brain cannot produce sufficient acetylcholine. After 60, this often shows up as memory lapses, difficulty remembering names, concentration problems. It is not always age. Sometimes it is choline deficiency. Second, choline protects the liver. It is necessary for transporting fat out of the liver. Without enough choline, fat accumulates in the liver. This is one of the causes of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is increasingly common in the United States. Third, choline supports the cell membranes of the entire body. Every cell is surrounded by a membrane in which choline plays a structural role. 2 eggs per day deliver about 50% of the daily choline requirement. That is almost impossible to replace through other foods. Meat and fish contain some choline, but eggs are by far the richest source per dollar spent. Have you noticed memory issues recently? Forgetting names? Losing your train of thought? That does not have to be age. Ask yourself, when did you last eat eggs regularly? Now the second hidden treasure in eggs that most people also do not know about. Lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 carotenoids that preferentially accumulate in the macula, the center of the retina responsible for sharp central vision. They protect the macula from oxidative damage caused by light and free radicals. Age-related macular degeneration, AMD, is the leading cause of vision loss in Americans over 60. It begins gradually. Most people only notice it when it is already advanced. And regular lutein and zeaxanthin consumption is one of the most well-documented protective factors. Why from eggs rather than spinach or kale? Because the egg yolk contains natural fat. Lutein and zeaxanthin are fat-soluble nutrients. They are only absorbed together with fat. In the egg, the nutrient and the delivery vehicle are already together. This makes bioavailability from eggs significantly higher than from most vegetables, even when those vegetables contain more lutein on paper. If you leave out the egg yolk, you lose exactly this protective effect for your eyes. How many eggs are actually beneficial? For most healthy people, up to 6 eggs per week. This corresponds to roughly 1 egg per day with 1 rest day. This amount is supported by multiple large studies as both safe and advantageous. For people over 60 who want to actively maintain muscle mass, protect memory and vision, and who do not have genetic hypercholesterolemia, 1 to 2 eggs daily is a reasonable approach. Who needs to be more careful? People with familial hypercholesterolemia, a genetically caused condition where LDL is very high, regardless of diet. People with severe heart failure, and people with type 2 diabetes where the data is less clear and individual consultation with your physician is recommended. Now there is one aspect that is medically interesting and that too few Americans know about: the omega-3 content of eggs. Conventional eggs from grain-fed chickens contain almost no omega-3 fatty acids. Chickens fed only grain produce eggs with an unfavorable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. A too high omega-6 ratio relative to omega-3 promotes systemic inflammation in the body. Pasture-raised eggs and eggs from chickens that eat grass, insects, and herbs look different. Their omega-3 content is significantly higher. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is more favorable. There are also special omega-3 eggs available in most supermarkets where chickens are fed flaxseed. The omega-3 content of these eggs can be up to 10 times higher than conventional eggs. The price difference between a conventional egg and a pasture-raised omega-3 egg is often just a few cents. For the nutrient density you receive in return, that is an extraordinarily good value. And a practical question many people have: how do you tell if an egg is fresh? The water glass test. A fresh egg sinks to the bottom and lies flat. An older egg tilts at an angle. A spoiled egg floats because the air pocket has expanded. This test costs nothing and takes 10 seconds. Now let us go deeper into the physiology, because there is a connection most people do not know between eggs and the immune system after 60. The immune system changes fundamentally with age. This process has a medical name: immunosenescence. The immune response becomes less precise, less powerful. This is why older adults respond more severely to infections, why vaccines are less effective with age, and why chronic inflammation becomes more common as we get older. What does this have to do with eggs? Several things. Zinc from eggs is directly involved in the maturation and activation of T lymphocytes, the immune cells that fight infections. Zinc deficiency is common in older adults and weakens the immune response. Selenium from eggs is necessary for the production of glutathione peroxidase, one of the most important antioxidant enzymes in the body. Without adequate selenium, immune defense breaks down faster, and vitamin D from eggs plays a key role in regulating the immune response. Vitamin D deficiency is extraordinarily common in adults over 60 and is associated with increased susceptibility to infections. The egg is not an immune booster in the advertising sense, but it is a concentrated source of the micronutrients the immune system needs in later life, in a single, affordable, easily accessible food. Now to an aspect particularly important for people who want to preserve muscle. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle, begins after age 50. After 60, the body loses 3 to 5% of muscle mass per decade without active intervention. That sounds small. Over 20 years, that is up to 15%, and that means less strength, worse balance, higher fall risk. The most important countermeasure is adequate protein, and specifically high-quality, fully usable protein. That is exactly what eggs deliver. The biological value of egg protein, the measure of how completely and efficiently the body can convert a protein into its own body protein, is among the highest available in any food. Higher than meat, higher than fish, higher than legumes. 2 eggs at breakfast provide about 12 to 14 grams of protein in optimally usable form. Have you noticed in recent years that you have lost some strength? That stairs are more demanding than they used to be? That is often not just age. That is protein deficiency combined with insufficient movement. Both are addressable. There is another connection rarely discussed between eggs and gut health. The gut microbiome, the community of billions of bacteria in your digestive tract, plays a central role in immunity, metabolism, and even mood. The composition of the microbiome is strongly influenced by diet. Choline from eggs is converted by certain gut bacteria into a substance called TMAO, trimethylamine oxide. Elevated TMAO levels have been linked in some studies to higher heart risk. That sounds concerning. But here is the critical point. This effect occurs primarily when the gut microbiome is unfavorably composed. In people with a healthy, diverse microbiome, TMAO production is significantly lower. What does this mean practically? Those who regularly eat fermented foods, yogurt, sauerkraut, kefir, who consume plenty of fiber and little processed meat, have a microbiome that processes choline differently. The risk is then minimal. This is another reason why combination matters. Eggs with some fermented food on the side is physiologically smarter than eggs with bacon. Not for the taste, for the microbiome. Now to preparation, because here lies the second mistake many people make. Boiling, hard or soft, is the most gentle preparation. The nutrients are largely preserved. Choline, lutein, vitamins, all still present. The boiled egg is the form in which eggs deliver their nutrients most completely. Poaching. Egg cooked without shell in simmering water. Similar to boiling. No additional fat needed. Nutrients protected. Scrambled eggs in a pan with a small amount of butter or olive oil. Good. The fat actually helps absorb the fat-soluble nutrients lutein and zeaxanthin more effectively. Fried egg in a pan. Acceptable. as long as the temperature is not too high. Not until the edges are brown and crispy. That oxidizes the cholesterol in the yolk, and that is genuinely problematic. The worst method, deep fried at very high temperatures in large amounts of fat with additional fatty ingredients, not because of the egg, because of the fat and the temperature, and the yolk, always include it. Never remove it. The egg white alone is a decent protein source, but without the yolk, the egg loses almost its entire micronutrient density. Choline is only in the yolk. Lutein is only in the yolk. The fat-soluble vitamins are only in the yolk. Those who eat only egg whites are having an expensive protein shake and leaving the best part behind. What is the best time for eggs? The morning. And that has a concrete physiological reason. Eggs deliver high-quality protein that raises the level of the satiety hormone peptide YY and lowers the level of the hunger hormone ghrelin. This keeps hunger stable for 4 to 5 hours, no energy crash at 11 in the morning, no reaching for sweet snacks. Studies show that people who eat eggs for breakfast consume measurably fewer calories throughout the day compared to people who breakfast on white bread, cereal, or other carbohydrates. Not because they are more disciplined, because their hormones respond differently. For people over 60, there is another reason why protein at breakfast is particularly important. Muscle synthesis is especially active in the morning. The body can use the amino acids from breakfast particularly well for muscle preservation. Swapping a sugary cereal for eggs in the morning gives your muscles an advantage without doing more exercise. Now to the critical part. What are you eating your eggs with? That is the question that determines everything. And this is the mistake most people make every morning. Eggs with bacon, sausage, or deli meat. This is the combination that studies link to elevated heart risk, not the egg, the processed meat. Bacon, sausage, salami, ham from the deli counter. These products contain saturated fats, nitrites, curing salts. Combined with an egg that already contains some cholesterol, and together with white toast that spikes blood sugar, you create an inflammation-promoting breakfast. The egg is the innocent element in that meal, but it gets the blame because it is the visible item on the plate. What works instead? 2 eggs boiled or scrambled, with whole grain toast, fresh tomatoes, cucumber, or avocado, or eggs with spinach, bell pepper, onions briefly sautéed, or eggs on a slice of whole grain bread with some cottage cheese and chives. These combinations deliver protein and choline from the egg, fiber and B vitamins from the whole grain, vitamin C from the vegetables, and beneficial bacteria from fermented foods if you add some yogurt or kimchi alongside. Remember one sentence. The egg is as healthy or as unhealthy as what sits next to it on the plate. Now to a topic that directly affects many people but that almost nobody connects to eggs. The interaction between eggs and certain medications commonly taken after 60. Proton pump inhibitors, medications for acid reflux like omeprazole and pantoprazole, strongly reduce stomach acid. That is their purpose. But stomach acid is also necessary to free vitamin B12 from food and make it available. Those who take proton pump inhibitors long-term and eat few B12-rich foods, and eggs are one of the best B12 sources, risk a gradual B12 deficiency. This shows up as fatigue, tingling in hands and feet, memory weakness. If you take proton pump inhibitors long-term, speak with your doctor about a B12 test and ensure you are regularly eating B12-rich foods like eggs, meat, and fish. Now to a topic many people are concerned about. Eggs and weight. Eggs contain about 70 to 80 calories each. That is moderate, not low, but not high either. What makes them special is their effect on satiety relative to their caloric content. Per-calorie eggs generate more fullness than almost any other food. This comes from several factors. The protein, the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients, the choline, which supports liver function and fat metabolism, and the consistency, a solid food leaves the stomach more slowly than liquid or soft food and maintains fullness longer. For people over 60 who want to maintain or manage their weight without hunger, without dieting, eggs are a valuable tool. not because they are low-calorie, but because they do more with their calories than most alternatives. One egg at breakfast instead of a muffin or pastry, not because of the calories, but because of what happens afterward. The pastry raises and drops blood sugar. 2 hours later, you are hungry again. The egg keeps you full for 4 to 5 hours. Now to concrete recipe ideas particularly suited for people over 60. Fast, affordable, nutrient-rich. The 3-minute breakfast. 2 eggs hard-boiled while the coffee brews. 1 slice of whole grain toast. Tomatoes or cucumber sliced. Done. 13 to 14 grams of protein, choline, lutein, vitamin B12, selenium. In 3 minutes of preparation. Scrambled eggs with vegetables. 2 eggs in a non-stick pan with a teaspoon of olive oil. A handful of spinach, bell pepper, or cherry tomatoes. Everything scrambled together until the egg sets. A slice of whole grain bread alongside. 5 minutes. Complete nutritional profile. The evening egg for days when breakfast had to be rushed. 1 hard-boiled egg on whole grain bread with cottage cheese and chives. Light, filling. Perfect for early evening when you want to finish your last meal 3 hours before sleep. Here is your weekly plan. Concrete and immediately actionable. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Eggs for breakfast. 2 eggs boiled or scrambled with whole grain bread and fresh vegetables. Tuesday and Thursday. Other protein-rich breakfast. Plain yogurt with oats or cottage cheese with berries. Saturday and Sunday, eggs as desired. This produces 4 to 6 eggs per week, in the optimal range. What to avoid? Bacon, sausages, deli meats as regular egg companions. White bread as the main component. Fruit juices alongside, overheating when frying until the edges blacken. What you will notice in the first weeks. First and second week, better satiety after breakfast, less hunger in the morning. That is the satiety hormone responding to protein. Third and fourth week, more stable blood sugar through the morning, less energy crash at 11. 3 months, in cases of previous choline deficiency, concentration and memory may improve. Not dramatically, but noticeably. For eye health, lutein needs months to accumulate in the macula. That is not a quick fix. That is long-term protection. One action for this morning. Boil 2 eggs, hard or soft, alongside a slice of whole grain bread and fresh vegetables. No bacon, no sausage. And notice how long you stay full. If this video was helpful, please subscribe. That is how I can keep making content like this, evidence-based, honest, and specific to what matters most for health after 60. My name is Dr. James Carter. I will see you in the next video.